So I want to tell a story that's expanding upon something that I mentioned in my first commentary video. I'll just refer to that video as my first video because it's the first one where, I was speaking. Um, so in that video, I mentioned somebody who, um, I did technical theater with, and they were an older person, and I made an offhanded comment. In the video that I want to further elaborate on. Um, so this story starts my sophomore year of high school, and then ends my junior year of high school. So my sophomore year of high school, I started doing technical theater at my school. I'll avoid specifics as to not dox myself online and to protect the privacy of people whose actions are meant in the story. Because before I continue, I want to say that anything that I say about this one person, I won't be providing their actual name, obviously, or any information that, could be used to identify them. Um, uh, and I could be completely wrong about them. This is just based off of what I saw and the interactions I had with them. And I was friends with this person. I will get into that later. But, I could be wrong about this. I'm not friends with them anymore, but, this is whatever. Okay, so sophomore year of high school, my first interaction with them was that I was meant to take something to our scene shop. And while I was there, they handed it off to me. And, the first impression I got from them was that they were kind of rude, but, I just disregarded it, didn't really think about it. And then again, in my first video, I mentioned that I got promoted to the crew head of the props crew my first show. And this guy was the kind of person who he cared more about your ability to practically do things than kind of you as a person, if that makes sense. He was somebody who you kind of had to prove yourself to in a way, the type of person who, that's kind of like that. And they had kind of been talking to me because they had noticed that I had started doing more in place of Qui-Gon Jinn. Um, and he kind of started to get a little bit of respect for me and started talking to me. So, I just started talking to him and I became friends with him. Now, um, a lot of the things, like a lot of people in my school's theater department didn't like him because he came off as rude a lot of the times. A lot of people just thought he was kind of a jerk because, he was kind of outwardly rude. But at the time, I just kind of thought that he was just kind of like someone who's outwardly abrasive, but on the inside cares a lot about people, which to a certain extent was true, I guess. But I was kind of like friends, the kind of friends where you talk to them in person, like at school, but then whenever you go home, you don't talk to them. So, also remember, I was an NPC for this is the period of my life whenever I stopped becoming an NPC. So a lot of social interactions and social cues I just didn't get. So be courteous of that as well. So if there's anything that comes up as a red flag in the story, no, at the time I probably didn't recognize it as a red flag then. So this one time, yeah, basically I ended up adding him on Clash Royale. And one day I saw that he was online while I was in my garage chilling with this dog my family was fostering. And I sent him a battle request. And then he accepted it. And then me and this guy started playing Clash Royale. And then we called. And then we talked for hours. And then we just kind of became closer. And this kind of thing kept happening to where we would text and call pretty much every single night. I thought he was funny. I assume he thought I was funny. We just started to become friends. And a lot of the topics that we discussed about were about, the fumbling of my technical director and just kind of all the ongoings that were happening in my theater department at the time. And then there was this other girl who was a freshman at the time. So she was 14 at the time, I was 15 at the time, and then he was 17 at the time. Um, and um, she was kind of a quieter girl, but she was friends with him, and so me and her had that mutual connection in the form of him. And then slowly, as the school year came about, all three of us kind of became friends. And I started to like her, and he kept like kind of making jabs at the fact that I had a crush on her. And of course, I never told him that I did, but he kept being like, I know you have a crush on her. I know you have a crush on her. And another thing that you need to know about me at this time was that at this time, this is whenever I was struggling a lot with my mental health, because I've really had a lot of mental health struggles throughout my life. But this was like around the time where it was getting really bad. And he would do things like kind of lower my self confidence. That way I had to rely more on him. So a lot of like predatory behavior. Um, and like for instance, like whenever I mentioned like, liking any girl or thinking any girl was hot, he would be like, well, you're short and you're fat and you're ugly. So, no girl's ever going to want to be with you. And he was, basically a grown ass man telling me this. And, I kind of was like, all right, whatever. Or I would mention, like, maybe talking to my parents about getting me into therapy. And he would be like, no, no, don't go to therapy. Just talk to me, right? So this guy was definitely very, like, very predatory, I'll say. And I feel like he was especially predatory to this girl who we'll call, her fake name for this will be Dove. So Dove, like, had a really rough home life, like really, really rough, and just kind of like had a lot of like issues or whatever, and um, like throughout that, um, he would be kind of the one he would like be there for her. And like to give you an example, like she got her phone taken away because she was friends with me and him, and her parents didn't want her talking to boys. So she got her phone taken away, like permanently, and he went and bought her a new phone. That way she could text both of us. And like, while he knew that I liked her, he would kind of like flex the fact that like he knew more about her personal life than I did. Like he would make comments like, "Oh, I bet she hasn't told you about that, has she?" And making very obvious remarks that he was kind of jealous of the fact that me and her were looking increasingly likely to date. And it all kind of came to this one point whenever he basically like confessed to her that he liked her. And he was, 17 and she was 14 at the time, which is weird. I know it's only 3 years, but it's development, especially whenever you're young. Like, to put that in perspective, like, right now, I could never see myself dating a 15-year-old. Like, that's really weird. That would be like if, like, think about like a fifth grader dating a second grader. It's weird. Age gaps get worse, like, as you get younger, and inverse when you get older. So yeah, it was just really weird, especially because she like was smaller and definitely like looked like her face. She kind of looked younger, and she visibly looked like she was her age, but he did not at all. He was very grown and obviously very mature for his age. He was, yeah, like on the more mature side of like older kids in high school. So yeah, it was just really weird. And she kind of snapped at him after that. Dove basically told him that he was a pedophile and that he was weird and that, all the men in her life end up like this. And basically, he ended up just like never really addressing to me what was going on, because at the time I was the stage manager for the musical theater show that we were doing. So I kind of like was busy a lot. So I kind of was focused on that. I wasn't focused on whatever they were doing. And it was just really like diabolical. And I don't know. I was just kind of like, what are you doing? Um, and he just wouldn't tell me. And I would be like, what's going on with that? And yeah, but also at the same time that this was happening, he started getting close to like pretty much a ton of other younger girls, all in the same class, and pretty much like it was a specific type of girl that he would try and get close with, and that way that they were shorter, probably all below 5'3", and like all very much like on the younger looking side. And he just would get really, really close to all of them. And he would specifically target, because theater is known to attract like people who tend to have a lot of like maybe home issues, or maybe are like part of like, maybe like queer, or so, a lot of people that are more prone to have like issues with their home life. And he would just always like gravitate towards people who tended to have like really bad issues. And he had enough credits to graduate early his junior year, but he opted to stay his senior year. And he had a twin sister who did graduate early. But he graduated with like 40 credits, which is insane because you only need or 48, which is insane because you only need 24 to graduate. So I don't know what he was doing there. But yeah, she ended up moving schools and stopped coming to school because she moved and went to a different school. And she got her phone taken away, so basically everyone lost contact with her. And I pressed him about it too, because I don't mean to sound like a cornball, but I'm kind of a confrontational person when it comes to like interpersonal stuff. I'm typically the kind of person to address the elephant in the room. And I was like, that's weird that you liked her whenever you were that, it's weird. And he was like, it's not that big of a deal. It's not like he defended himself up until I stopped talking to him. And it became kind of a point of tension because the people that I had told about it, like, they agreed that it was weird because a lot of the stuff with our friendship was private because we were all people that kind of kept to ourselves. So this was kind of happening and nobody really knew what was going on. But I've told people this story since the end of, like, since then. And people who I used to go to school with were like, yeah, I got that vibe too. He was really, really, really weird. So yeah, it wasn't just me who thought this. Like, whenever I gave them the details of the story, they thought it was weird. So then, going into my junior year, he was just really, really close with this new girl, with this other girl, two other girls who I'll mention. Their fake names for this will be, we'll still call this one girl Lucy. He just started getting really close to Lucy. And it got to the point where there was like a few times I saw them PDA. Like, I saw him like crying and she was giving him a hug. But also, I don't trust that behavior is just platonic, because if you remember, he discouraged me from getting help with my like mental issues. And then at the same time, he is doing this stuff with all these younger girls and getting close to all of these younger girls. And I just thought it was weird. But he had kind of mended his reputation since then. So it just kind of became one of those things where like I knew, like I just knew in the bottom of my heart that's like he had more sinister intention. But at the same time, like, I didn't have any proof. I mean, other than the fact that he liked, a 14-year-old girl when he was 17. But a lot of people, a kind of disgustingly large amount of people, would like not see that as weird. And there was a culmination when during the last show of my junior year, while him and another technician who I'm friends with were in the lighting booth, my friend looked back at him and his deal was out. Like, it was just out. And I don't know. I was just kind of shocked by that because, like, that doesn't feel like something that just happens, you know? I feel like most people with a penis can agree that that type of thing just doesn't happen. And then he just was like, oh, I guess that happened. And then went on with it. And then I tried to press him about it, that at this, hangout that was after a show. And he just was like, yeah, whatever. And me and him had been growing closer not closer, further and further apart because I kind of sensed that he was just causing problems in theater. Like, he was causing a lot of, like, issues between people because he would just lie about things that other people were doing. He tried to do it to me, but I kind of caught on to it and just stopped listening to him. He would just basically incite drama wherever he could be. And then he graduated. But, I mean, yeah. And then, of course, my directors knew about all this, but, they didn't do anything about it because my directors are the types of people to, like, they don't feel like the adults in the situation. Like, whenever I tell people about the stuff that Miss M does, like, whenever I told my family about the way that Miss M runs my theater department, they always think that she's a student. They never think of that she's, like, a teacher. Because, like, the stuff that I'm describing her doing, they just can't, like, see an adult do. So, yeah. That's the broad events of the story. There's more specifics that I'll get into if people will, like, leave a comment and, like, ask me about it. Because at this point, I'm kind of like, I have a lot of stories to tell. I just kind of, like, need questions. That way I have more to talk about. So, if you made it to this far in the video and you like it, please leave a comment. And there's, like, 100% chance that if you leave an actual comment, then I will respond with a video. So, yeah. Like I said again, I don't know definitively that this guy was, a creep. But I have ample evidence for it. Not definitive evidence, but, enough to where, so yeah. Like I said again, leave a comment if you want another video.